Imagine pouring your absolute soul into creating an app that literally sits on almost every smartphone on Earth right now. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar empire used daily by world leaders, pop stars, and probably you. But then, you are completely, surgically erased from its history.
Okay, let's dive into this. In today's explainer, we're unpacking the ultimate Silicon Valley mystery. I mean, who creates a massive, world-altering tech empire only to be left with absolutely nothing? Look, we all know the big names, right? Jack Dorsey, Evan Williams, the co-founders who walked away as mega billionaires. But there is a shadow founder, a guy who birthed the actual idea only to be left entirely in the dark while his friends took all the glory and, well, all the gold.
That man is Noah Glass. And today, on the very platform he helped create, he's virtually a ghost. He's got a mere 45,000 followers. For a tech pioneer, that is a tiny, tiny fraction. And his bio, it just reads, "I started this." It's honestly like a haunting digital tombstone for a legacy that was just stolen right out from under him. So how exactly did this happen? Well, the story of our shadow founder actually kicks off back in 2005. Way before the billionaires and the massive boardrooms. Noah Glass was just running a startup called Odeo right out of his small apartment. The goal was pretty simple. He wanted to build the internet's premier home for podcasts. And to fund it, Noah brought in his wealthy friend and neighbor, Evan Williams. Now, Evan had just sold his company Blogger to Google, so he had serious capital and industry clout. Evan agreed to invest, but he had one strict condition. He gets to be the CEO. Noah reluctantly agreed, basically prioritizing financial sense over his own control of the company. For a brief moment, man, it really looked like Odeo was going to be a massive hit. They hired a team, secured more funding, and got ready to totally dominate the podcasting space. And then, in the span of just 10 minutes, Steve Jobs completely crushed their entire business plan. Just like that, Apple announced they were integrating podcasts directly into iTunes, making Odeo instantly obsolete. Facing absolute ruin, Noah and Evan basically had to beg their employees, asking, what else can we do? They needed a pivot, and they needed it yesterday. So one of those employees was an engineer you might have heard of named Jack Dorsey. Over drinks one night, Jack pitched a rough idea to Noah, a way to broadcast your current status to the world in real time. Noah was immediately hooked. See, he'd been suffering from profound loneliness at the time. His dad left when he was young, his marriage was straining, and his friendship with Evan was just completely falling apart over business stuff. So Noah saw this status idea as way more than just a product. To him, it was a cure for isolation, a way for people everywhere to feel connected. Searching for the perfect name, Noah actually just opened up a dictionary and landed on the word Twitter, which was defined brilliantly as a short burst of inconsequential information and chirps from birds. Hit the nail on the head, right? With this fresh direction, the platform really started to pick up momentum. But, success doesn't magically fix fractured relationships at the top. The very first brutal betrayal was brewing behind the scenes. Noah and Evan were constantly at each other's throats, arguing over every tiny detail, and they fundamentally clashed on the company's vision. Noah eventually confessed to Jack that he wanted to oust Evan as CEO. From Noah's perspective, he started the original company, and he and Jack were the ones driving this whole new Twitter thing. Why on earth should Evan be the guy calling the shots? Now, what's really interesting about this exact moment is the sheer ruthlessness of how it all played out. Noah thought Jack was his absolute closest ally, but Jack had actually grown super frustrated with Noah's chaotic energy and basically saw him as a distraction. So, entirely in secret, Jack met with Evan and delivered a harsh ultimatum: fire Noah or I quit forever. Evan, desperately needing Jack's engineering talent, agreed. He fired Noah from the very company he had founded. And here is the wildest part. Later that exact same night, an absolutely devastated Noah met up with Jack at a bar. Completely unaware that Jack had orchestrated his firing just hours earlier, a crying Noah actually hugged Jack for comfort. Just brutal. So, with Noah forcibly removed, you'd probably think things finally stabilized. Not even close. Because success brings an entirely new kind of chaos. By 2007, Twitter was the sole focus, but it was growing so incredibly fast that it was practically self-destructing. The infrastructure was an absolute mess. The site was crashing on a daily basis, which birthed that infamous fail whale error screen you might remember. The ironic reality was that the sheer weight of their own massive popularity was causing a daily operational nightmare. It got so bad that Evan stepped back into a chairman role, which opened the door for Jack Dorsey to step up as the brand new CEO. To put that chaos into perspective, the sheer numbers completely explain why the servers were literally melting down. It took them 8 long months to scrape together their first 20,000 users. Fast forward just a bit, and suddenly, they were gaining 20,000 new users every single hour. It was insane. Celebrities like Kanye West and Lady Gaga were just showing up at their offices. Even the Russian president visited to send his very first tweet, complete with snipers and Secret Service, right as the site, ironically enough, crashed yet again. It was just this unstoppable cultural phenomenon. But beneath all this massive, explosive growth, there was a severe ideological war tearing the leadership apart. What exactly was Twitter actually supposed to be? Jack Dorsey rigidly stuck to his original vision, a platform for broadcasting your personal status updates in the moment. Evan, on the other hand, was watching users tweet breaking news way before traditional media could even react, like that famous photo of the U.S. Airways plane crashing into the Hudson River. Evan firmly believed Twitter was evolving into a global information and news network. And this fundamental disagreement, it caused endless friction. By 2008, that friction hit an absolute breaking point. Jack wasn't just losing the ideological war, he was getting heavily distracted by his new mini-celebrity lifestyle. Instead of focusing on the product, he was out attending exclusive parties and, believe it or not, taking evening dressmaking classes. But worst of all, he was completely neglecting the absolute basics of running a tech company. Evan made this horrifying discovery. Twitter didn't even have site backups. Think about that. If a single database crashed, all user data, every connection, every single tweet would just be permanently wiped out in an instant. Convinced Jack was severely mismanaging everything, Evan went straight to the investors and successfully ousted Jack as CEO. But this right here is where we see the ultimate boardroom revenge start to take shape. See, when Noah was fired, he tragically isolated himself from the world. When Jack was fired, he did the exact opposite. He went on this massive public relations tour, giving interviews, doing public speeches, basically pretending he was still running the show while holding on to this completely hollow chairman title. Behind the scenes, he had absolutely zero say in the company. But secretly, he was plotting his master return. So the crucial point is that Evan had some pretty glaring weaknesses as CEO, and they began heavily frustrating the board of investors. First off, his decision-making was just painfully slow, like he would deliberate for weeks over minor details. Second, he had major trust issues, preferring to only hire his close personal friends for senior roles. And third, maybe the biggest issue, he had zero focus on monetization. Twitter was this global sensation, literally turning down buyout offers from Facebook and Yahoo, but it was making practically no money. Jack saw these exact weaknesses and started operating like a grand chess master, moving his pawns. He quietly collected intelligence on all of Evan's management mistakes. Then, he systematically seeded doubts with the investors, just constantly whispering in their ears about Evan's incompetence. And you know what? This manipulation worked perfectly. It forced a surprise board vote to replace Evan. The vote ended up being a dead tie. The deciding, tie-breaking vote fell to the chairman of the board, Jack Dorsey. Yes, the very seat Evan had given Jack out of guilt years prior, Jack now used to ruthlessly fire Evan. You really can't make this stuff up. To add absolute insult to injury, the board immediately installed Evan's trusted friend, Dit Costolo, as the new CEO, mostly because of his aggressive focus on actually making the company money. Now, this revealed a dark, totally unbelievable irony from a joke tweet Costolo had actually sent on his very first day working at the company. He had tweeted, quote, "Tomorrow, task number 1, undermine CEO, consolidate power." Evan had laughed at it back then. Yeah, he definitely wasn't laughing now as his own friend took his job. And this brilliantly illustrates a timeline of corporate karma and unbelievable boardroom backstabbing that completely defined the creation of this platform. Look at it. In 2006, Noah Glass is pushed out. In 2008, Jack Dorsey is pushed out. And in 2010, Evan Williams is pushed out. All three founders ruthlessly betrayed by one another in this relentless quest for control over a platform that, honestly, none of them could ever fully tame. Eventually, as we know, Jack Dorsey managed to claw his way back, returning as CEO for a second time in 2015. Both he and Evan Williams rode Twitter's massive IPO to become immensely wealthy billionaires. But what about the true cost of this success? What about Noah Glass, the guy who literally provided the original spark, the name, and the very foundation of the company? He was completely erased. When Twitter generated all that massive, world-changing wealth, Noah holds absolutely zero shares. He walked away with nothing. Which leaves us with a profoundly unsettling thought to end this explainer on. Noah Glass started this platform to cure his own deep-seated loneliness. He just wanted a tool to connect humanity. Yet if a tool built to cure loneliness ends up isolating its very creator, destroying his most trusted friendships, and entirely erasing his legacy, what is the real cost of Silicon Valley success?